Hello, hello, hello. It's that time again. Welcome to Mayster Reviews for the penultimate video ever, and it's time to complete the trilogy of the Mayster Rankings. This is the Mayster Rankings of 2024. So guys, welcome to the Mayster Rankings of 2024. Mayster Reviews is coming to its end, and today I'm going to be covering the final year that I made loads of written reviews on now the pretty much finished column of Mayster Reviews, which I'll probably be doing some touch-ups on, spelling mistakes and all that kind of stuff, but there'll be no more entries and the account is basically closed. Yes, everything will be up there forever for people to read any thoughts I had on films over this period of my life. But no, the account's basically done, and this is the final leaderboard, the final fixed leaderboard for 2024. So I'm going to, as quick fire as possible, go through all of my thoughts on all of these and where I've ranked them. Yes, I will let you all know where your favourites of last year probably ended up, because I imagine I will have seen them. But we're going to do something a bit different this year. So, rather than previous years where they was new to the concept and I just did the whole ranking thing the first time, and then I really made a point of what was the best movie of 2023, and really, with the title and thumbnail, really drilled that home last year, I've decided that this year, for 2024's rankings, I'm going to be going from best to worst. So you're going to see my favourite films up front, and then you're going to see the worst last. So yes, I'm going to be going down in that order. So as quickly as possible, we're going to fire through this, and yeah, it's time for you to hear my thoughts one final time on 2024 in film. Now, coming in at number one, I basically just think is a masterpiece from DreamWorks. We have the Wild Robot. Yeah, just phenomenal, really. I'm not going to give much thought to a lot of these. I'm just going to plow through. But no, I just want to really give a moment to spare for how good of a kids' film I actually think this is. Number two, we have Poor Things. Just a general, really well examination, really good examination on life itself and just what it means to be human, with a stellar performance by Emma Stone. Number three, we have Doom Part 2. What else needs to be said? I was drowned in spice from minute one, and this thing is just incredible. It's absolutely breathtaking in sequences, and it's I imagine it'll be remembered by Denis Villeneuve's fans and, well, everyone really for many, many years to come. During number two and number four, just frankly a fantastic film, and Clint Eastwood's last contribution to the industry. Just a gripping thriller. Five, we have Civil War. Six, we have Challengers. Honestly, just incredible. This might actually be personally my favourite film of the year. I just think it's electrifying from start to finish, and the direction is on point. Seven, we have Wicked. They actually did it. They pulled off the perfect adaptation of this story, at least for part one. And yeah, I cannot wait for part two next year. Eight, we have Megalopolis. I actually favoured this film an enormous amount, I have to say. And that's just, what else needs to be said? I just really appreciated it. If I'm plowing through, I can't give a lot of thought to these, but I would just like to say that I'd like to shout out that I do think Megalopolis was good. 9, The End We Start From. This is BFI's The Last of Us, and I'm all for it. 10, It Ends With Us. This was a very mature examination of abuse and relationships that went from an electrifying kind of rom-com kind of thing to something a lot more serious, and I respected it for that. 11, Unsung Hero. This is just emotional as hell, and a real feel-good story that I think everyone needs to see at least some point. And speaking of which, 12, Fly Me to the Moon. Perfect casting for Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson, and perfect together as well. And the dynamic is just crazy, off the charts for such a whimsical, lovely film to see. 13, Better Man, the last film of 2024, comes in very high. I just love this. This is one of my favourite biopics I've seen. And it just tells such a raw and honest story about Robbie Williams that I really appreciate. 14, Horizon: An American Saga, Chapter 1. This felt more like television, so I'm going to mark it down at least a little bit, but there's just some sequences that just took my breath away and were really powerful. And I just love this as a Western for the modern age. 15, we have If, a kid's movie that is just off the charts emotional, and Krasinski's once again done it again in his direction. It's just fantastic. 16, Late Night with the Devil, absolutely horrifying. Frankly, just so on the edge of your seat from start to finish with the way this television broadcast film was shot. It's enthralling. 17, Heretic. Hugh Grant, he really sets the stage for a fantastic film. It ends a bit weak, but I do believe that he just killed it with the opening act. He just so tense, his performance and the way that he handled it. 18, Conclave, fantastic thriller about the papacy, and Ralph Fiennes absolutely smashes it out of the park. 19, The Iron Claw. I don't think this is one of the best of the year, like what a lot of people have said, like up there in top 5, but I do believe this is an incredible story about parenting and just the responsibilities of it and doing a good job. 20, A Quiet Place Day 1. I do seriously love the film that was churned out here, but it was not the one advertised, and I'm not too happy about it. In 21, we have Monkey Man. I think this is the new John Wick, even though I doubt it'll be continued now, but honestly, it was a fantastic entry and directorial debut from Dev Patel, and I massively respect him for it. 22, The Zone of Interest, a haunting film, followed by Anora in 23, an unexpectedly hilarious film, and then Boy Kills World in 24, just an absolute kick-ass action movie that I could love to pieces. 25, we have All of Us Strangers, a very somber and emotional piece, which really affected me at my core, followed by Alien Romulus in 26, which I just thought was a fantastic horror/action sci-fi thriller. Just brilliant, just a really good franchise film. And then followed by Deadpool and Wolverine in 27, which is honestly just a comic book guy's dream. It's just honestly a fantastic film for the fans, but nothing more really, just not an enormously well-told story or a cinematic art by any stretch, but just a really fun time at the movies. 28, Back to Black. A fantastic biopic similar to Better Man, but it just falls short compared to that one. I just feel it's just now looking back on it, just maybe a tad forgettable, but very competent. I remember it being very well done, and it really hears all the characters out in Amy's life. Inside Out 2 in number 29, a solid film that is just as genius as the first and really carries it over the finish line to be a worthy successor to the first. A Different Man in 30, a wonderful examination of in sort of looking at our inner selves and having confidence to see ourselves with a smiling face, how our outward projection in the world and how we see ourselves in front of other people. I think it's a really nice exploration of that. 31 is Twister, just a kick-ass time, followed by Beetlejuice in 32. So fun. I was tapping my feet the entire way through this, and also for Mean Girls in 33 as well was such a fun time. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was an impressive follow-up to Caesar's trilogy in 34, and then Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in 35. Such a fun time. Jim Carrey did come back for a script worthy of gold. This is such an entertaining time at the movies. War of the Rohirrim, Lord of the Rings, comes in at 36. A wonderful story of vengeance and strategy, and my first Lord of the Rings film, which I was very impressed with. And then also in a similar vein, Gladiator 2, which I was also very impressed with, surprisingly. Ridley Scott can be hit or miss these days, but I was very impressed by this one. Ordinary Angels in 38 is a very emotional film about just doing good by others, and I really appreciate it for what it was, and it's why it reaches the top 40. And then Sing Sing is also a lovely film about rapport between other human beings, but this time men in a prison. And yeah, that was a wonderful film which I saw at Tyneside Cinema. Capping out the top 40, we have Mufasa the Lion King. A thing which a lot of people are dismissing, but I personally really enjoyed it and thought it was a very solid prequel, which I really appreciated. We have The First Omen in 41, and this is I just was very impressed by the horror elements of this and the way it was executed, the story and all kinds. I did not expect much in this film, and it delivered. 42, we have Origin, a bit more of a documentary than a feature film, I would say, but than a cinematic feature film anyway, like a fiction one. But no, it was very well executed nonetheless with a great third act. Speak No Evil was a great thriller with James McAvoy at the helm, and this was his movie. He was very intense in it. And then ISS was also very tense with a great inciting incident somewhere in its plot. And that caps out my 4-star films here, so we're going to get worse from this point forward. It's necessary to say that my 5-star films ended at Dune Part 2, so Juror number 2 is the top of my 4-star banding. But now we're moving down to our 3-star band, so sort of our great to average films, I would say now, which is a large segment, but we're going to just plough through these as quickly as possible. In number 45, we have The Substance. I just think the ending grotesqueness of this completely throws its brilliance out the window as it progresses. The Outrun is a great story about alcoholism. Transformers 1, just a great, really fun prequel in 47. Drive Away Doll's such a funny time. Just a hilarious film, really, which I really, really love. And Small Things Like These, a great story about just voyeurism and letting things just subside in front of your face. And ignorance, really. And The Colour Purple was a really great musical adaptation and just a very powerful, hard-hitting story, essentially. Bad Boys Ride or Die was just, honestly, just kick-ass as hell. I really, really enjoyed it. And The Beekeeper as well was just so stupid fun, but with great action. The Holdovers was a sweet little film. Kind of reminded me of Scent of a Woman for some reason. But I just really like Paul Giamatti's performance here. And The Apprentice was also a very, very good film about success and drive and becoming a different man due to the power of money and price that you need to pay to become someone who's successful. Long Legs really breaks my heart because I think Nicolas Cage was just ridiculous in this performance. I really thought he was just a bit of a joke. But the intensity of the direction was so damn good. I think this could have been so much more than what it was. Joker Folie à Deux. Honestly, this could have been one of the best films of the year. I think this massively lets it down. I don't think it is the best. I don't think it's anywhere near the first one's quality, but I actually do cut this some slack, whereas a lot of people aren't. And there are certain elements of this I really, really loved. So I'm not nowhere near as harsh on this as other people are. Smile 2, a great follow-up, really. Where I think the entity is just very unfair, and I don't know how it's possible to beat it, to be honest. It's just a bit unfair, and I didn't like that about it. But no, I think it was a very, very solid follow-up. Young Woman in the Sea, a very good performance by Daisy Ridley in a lovely, sweet little Disney movie that was very worth checking out at Tyneside Cinema, the only place it was showing it. Never Let Go always kept me guessing. But in the end, I think it was a bit disappointing, the ending, but the way it kept me guessing, I do respect it for that. Moana 2, I'd say a worthy successor at the first one, nowhere near as good, similar to Joker, but a worthy successor to the first. The Persian version, a great example of representation, and I just generally really like this film, with all its different nuances and flashbacks and that sort of thing, and all the dynamics coming together. The Bike Riders, a really fun time with some great performances by Butler and Hardy especially from what I remember. And One Life, the first film of 2024, which I think despite its hard-hitting themes didn't hit on the level I wanted it to. I don't know why, it just seemed almost a little muted. Argyle I thought was really fun. I thought it was fucking ridiculous, but I thought it was a real fun time at the movies. But it's just sheer ridiculousness dragged it down. It's almost like the Thor Love and Thunder of Matthew Vaughn's filmography, well, at least recent filmography anyway. Wicked Little Letters has a bit of an agenda problem about it, which I'm not a big fan of. It's not really the humble British comedy it made itself out to be, but I do appreciate what it does, and it was very funny. Lisa Frankenstein is just complete bombastic craziness, and I really love it for that. It's really stylistic, and I really appreciated the choices. Catherine Newton was fantastic here. Mother's Instinct, I hated Anne Hathaway's character here, but that's to the film's credit. American Fiction is just a gross example of sort of soft, unintended racism that it's crazy. That it was just so fun and well pointed out by the filmmakers, which I thought was a really interesting, dark sort of humour, comedic angle to it. Abigail was such a bombastic and funny vampire movie. I really, really appreciated it. And Furiosa Mad Max Saga, despite its problems, I also thought was very impressive. Maxine, I'd say probably the weakest of the T.I. West's X trilogy, but still real fun time nonetheless, as well as Love Lies Bleeding, which had some problems, but I thought was quite dynamic with the performances in some areas and just a general kind of a bit of a vibe watch. Something in the Water, much better than I expected. Really. But again, there's a sort of cheap quality about it in places. But the dynamic between these girls, it was a story that I was not expecting to be as good as it was, and it's very much like Fall from 2022. The Crow, I don't think there's an enormous amount of substance here, but I think the action was pretty great, and I generally just like this film in general. I definitely wouldn't say I disliked it. Baghead, though, I think this misses a mark a little bit, but I think the concept's great. I think the concepts are very, very scary. But it's just, I think it misses the mark in a couple of different areas. Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire was just completely fucking ridiculous. But again, such a fun time at the movies, but it was just so stupid that this is kind of where it needs to fall on the list. Bob Marley, One Love, again, just a really well-natured film, but nothing more than that. Just like a nice, sweet time at the movies about Bob Marley's life. And Lee as well, it was just kind of there, a lot like One Life, where it's got very hard-hitting things, but its execution doesn't make its ideas hit in the way that I think the filmmakers intended. Or at least as well as they should have. Cuckoo was a bit of a weird one. I liked some of the choices there, but it was just I didn't fully connect with it. But I think there was definitely a story there that I latched onto. and Hunter Schafer was great. The Book of Clarence was a bit of a joke at the first, like it was some funny jokes, but when it tried to get serious, and there was kind of a mixed mash of tones there. But when it got serious towards the end, I really appreciated the third act in the end, and I thought it was very, very well done. We have Afraid, a film which I again actually really like. Still, really, it's a very cheaply made, I'd say, but it's but this is kind of this is about AI in the household, and I thought it was actually pretty well done, to be honest, and the AI itself was a pretty scary entity. Paddington in Peru was just a really lovely film, really, and same goes for Kung Fu Panda, which was a kind of a shadow of its former self, with the series that preceded it, but it's no different to Toy Story 4, really. The Critic was a nice watch, a very intense and nice performance by Ian McKellen, which I really appreciated, but it's nothing more than that, just a very kind of tame watch. And Blink Twice, I think it got a bit. I lost the interest a fair few times during it, but I will say that it was a very, very valiant effort by Zoe Kravitz for a directorial debut. Migration was a lovely little illumination film, but nothing real special. I thought the voice work was pretty great, but just a general generic story, which I've pretty much already forgotten. The Dead Don't Hurt, I don't even remember what the story was here. I just know the antagonistic forces were pretty strong and really tense in some sequences. The Fall Guy, I'm quite muted on this one. It was just kind of there. We're at the stage of the list now where it's kind of blockbusters that just didn't really hit for me. I like them, but they didn't wow me in any kind of way. Same with Red One. I really am impressed with the amount of money and effort they put into the effects and the way this world was realised, but again, it's just there. I'll forget about this it's only the recency bias why I think Red One, even though I put it below The Fall Guy, why I remember more about it and I appreciate it more, because I guarantee when that's a year old, I'll also barely think about that one too. Despicable Me 4, I just can't give this a pass. I just can't give it a pass really higher on the list, because even though the Minions, I love them, there's not really a true story here anymore with these movies. They're just there. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, similarly, that this was just a bit tame for a fourth entry in a franchise that is 40 years old, which probably should have more entries by the maths being done. But for a fourth entry, only a fourth in 40 years, this should have been a lot more than what it was, and it wasn't. Piece by Piece seemed a lot like a vanity project in its earlier phases, but it got a lot better once it turned into a true musical of Pharrell's life and the recognisable songs came in. And The Taste of Things was honestly boring as hell, but it was so romantic that I can't really deny it. The themes here were great and really well done, and I can see why I can appreciate it so much. Immaculate, Sydney Sweeney does a fine job here. It's not as good as The First Omen, which is a very similar film, but I just think it does the job, really. There's nothing really much to it. Salem's Lot as well, just very, very much like just your standard horror fare. Stephen King, just same old sludge, really, and nothing more to it than that. And now pretty much near in 2-star territory now. We have Venom: The Last Dance. I think the Sonyverse just needs to end, to be honest, but I do appreciate this last entry from Venom, and it was a somewhat fun time. But I think Craven was slightly worse, but I also really like the Rhino there too. Just very kind of just their movies, but they do the job. I do think these two movies this year do the job, unlike another one which I'm going to be touching on a bit later. Definitely entering 2-star territory now. We have Night Bitch. I think this is so down on motherhood that I have to weigh it down as far as I do. But it gets kind of mature and really responsible about the difficulties of motherhood in the end, and it kind of balances the scales out. But it's just so hateful towards motherhood, it seems, in the first 2/3 of this movie that I just have to mark it down. Seize Them as a British comedy. It was funny and I laughed, but not because it was good, it's just shit. It's so bad that it's good, but for that I'll credit it, and it comes in at number 99. Right, number 100, and this is where we're really going to start losing the plot after this point. Not massively until the end, but we're going to start losing the plot. Trap was honestly a bit cringe. The villain plot here and the character was just a bit cringe. But I think the intensity of getting out of the stadium itself, I think that was very well done. I think it's very well made. I just think the performances in the script is just a bit off, to be honest. The Front Room, I think Catherine Hunter gives a ridiculous performance here that's just honestly a bit outrageous, and it seemed more like a joke more than anything else. Tarot is a cheap as shit movie, but it did remind me a lot of Andy Muschietti's It in 2017, which I appreciated in the way it was structured, and I did kind of like it personally. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure movie to me, but yeah, it is still cheap as shit. But Imaginary was worse. Imaginary had such a good concept, I imagine, in the boardroom, but it's lack of subtext and just sheer boredom throughout until the third act. It just completely lets it down as a film. And Night Swim, the fact how whoever's idea was to make an entire film about a pool, a horror movie about a pool, I get it was alright, probably a good elevator pitch, but the second the script started getting writing, you got to realise this is a short film and nothing more. It was honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this got adapted from a short film because it's honestly pretty shit. We have The Watched, I believe, which is the UK title for this film, from M. Night's daughter. I just think this is just a pretentious piece, really. I think there's something about it, a plot twist that's really well done, but overall just a general bit of a mess, to be honest. I will give it this. I believe the story here is alright, and I believe the visuals are pretty great. I just think the execution and the way that this is done, I was just not engaged. The intensity that I was looking for with this just wasn't really there. And the threat, I wasn't afraid of the threat really at all. When it came to this, it didn't really come off the way I wanted it to. It could have been horrifying, but it wasn't. The Boys in the Boat by George Clooney. Frankly, I just thought this was boring. I'm sorry, it's a nice feel-good movie really, but I just thought the performances were a tad muted, and I just thought the whole thing was really boring. And then, you'll never believe that 13 films came in under this, but Madam Web is in 107. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, there's certain parts of this that I like. I think that some parts of it are pretty well made. But honestly, there's just, for how bad this film can be at times, there's nothing that hasn't already been said. But I will just address that last shot of them in the costumes, just the most corniest, cringiest shit I've ever seen in my life. Unbelievable, the last few shots of that movie. And the fact how I found out they reused the shot from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies for the edit for this it's absolutely horrendous. The fact they did that in post. So it just comes in here. 108 is Gassed Up, a film that I honestly think half tries to glorify gang violence, gang crime in London, and I'm sorry, I just can't get behind it whatsoever. It just seems like it almost half glorifies it, and I just think no thank you. 109 Borderlands, just a general, just pretty shit video game adaptation. There's some definitely promising moments here, like Kevin and Kate do decent jobs with their characters, but the likes of Ariana Greenblatt and other elements of this film are just utterly atrocious, and I can't get behind them at all. I was just very, very much bored throughout this entire thing. The Exorcism, this was okay. I mean, there's just nothing to go by. It's just shit. It's just Russell Crowe doing a shit movie, and the fact that we got such a good actor in a film like this, that's just what makes it all the more appalling. And the marketing it makes it seem like it's a sequel to The Pope's Exorcist, which it absolutely is not. I mean, just look at the two posters. It's horrendous. Then you've got Queer. Now, I hate to do this to Luca Guadagnino because challenges are so high up on my list, but I just couldn't get behind this at all. I think Daniel Craig gives a magnificent performance, but I think that's all I can say for this. I think the rest of it's very whimsical, yes, but just quite boring. And I just couldn't get behind what I was seeing, and I didn't really understand a lot of what I was seeing either. Sting is also very boring. For a horror movie, which is even worse, I would say I'd mark it down even more for that because it should be even more engaging because of the sequences. I like the idea of it, and I mean it's somewhat well realised, but the execution of the film overall is what really drags it down. It's just a bit shit, really, and boring. With a concept that could have actually been really fun. Even more than The Watch, The Strangers Chapter 1 is a film that thinks it's the absolute bee's knees of a horror movie and is utter shit. Now we're in the territory of films that I just think absolutely do not hit the mark and have got very little good to say about them. I just think the villains are so scary, and they're not. Just everything about this film just thinks it's so good and so much better than it is, and it's not. The Garfield movie in 114, I think there's one or two genuinely heartfelt moments in this script. The rest of it, it's a horrible adaptation of the property, and it's just a terrible kids movie all around. I would genuinely find myself rolling my eyes every 5 seconds at this shit. 115, Priscilla. I'm sorry, this is just it. I might even have to bleep this because I'm having to be serious now. With the way that YouTube's going to handle this shit. It's just glorified. I'm sorry, that's just what this is. Honestly, and the fact how I can't think of any reason why this film exists other than to completely tear down Elvis's legacy. I'm sorry, I'm fuming. I'm honestly fuming. All it does is just completely and utterly tear him down. What's the intent of a film like that? Why does that even need to go in cinemas? That's a vengeance piece. That is not something made for a widespread audience. That's just that. I just don't understand why someone would ever think to do that. It's just utter. But the thing is, Kelly Spaney, Jacob Elordi was great, but Kelly Spaney was fantastic in this movie still, and the production design was really, really good. So she deserved to get stuff off the back of this. So I'm really happy she got Alien as a result. Harold and the Purple Crayon, I'd say even worse than Garfield. I think it's got a decent third act, like a fight at the end. But this is just, it's just where most of the budget, I imagine, went. But the overall, the movie was just pretty shit, really. Just so cheap for the most youngest of kids. And this is why I don't really want to see many kids' movies anymore. Just not very good at all, this movie was. Now we go into territory where I honestly, I have like maybe one thing at most good to say about each of these last four. Where really this is just, like, I think I've got one good thing to say about these next three, but the last one I've got nothing good to say. And to my knowledge and the way this is done, I'm pretty sure, yeah, we're now in 1-star territory. So I think Harold was the last one. These last four are now all 1-star films. I've probably got one good thing to say about these first three, and then that's it. Kinds of Kindness. This is probably the most controversial pick on this list, I would say. I'd argue, maybe Joker. But with this, I just think it's not made for anyone. But I don't think it's made for anyone but Yorgos Lanthimos. I'm gonna be real. I think it's just an anthology story, like 3 stories back to back with no relevance to each other whatsoever. Why that's in the same film and has to be, I don't understand. That's more like a TV kind of experiment rather than this. Why that's there, I have no clue. They've got no relevance. The story's hard to follow. The dialogue and acting choices are all very weird. It comes off like a piece of art, but what is the point of a piece of art if the general audience member can't appreciate it? It's just, I will never understand now why auteurism is now such a heavy focus on just doing things that are just so weird and quirky and trying new things and then calling it a masterpiece. This didn't come off in any way like something that was meant to be digested and accepted by the masses. If this is meant to be appreciated by a few people, why was it ever made? It just seems like a complete waste of time. And this might just may sit in my mindset as a creator now, but I'm sorry, you've got to do things that people can get behind. And with this is just, and they do something to a dog as well in the third story, I believe it is, of the 3. And that's where it just completely lost me. Like, honestly, just fuck off. Again, performances are great. I think it's really well shot and made. But that's the thing that it's got going for it. But otherwise, just no. This could have, for a long time, this could have been the worst film of the year. But In a Violent Nature comes in at my 3rd worst in 118. And this is honestly, other than a couple of neat visuals of just what it is I'm saying, like it's shot really pretty, this is honestly just an entire horror movie, even if you want to even call it engaging like that. It's just an entire film of a guy walking around a woods murdering people, and the first fucking killer's off screen. I swear to God, I could have literally thrown my food and drink at the screen. I could not believe this shit, how they had that first kill after just walking around completely off screen. It was absolute horseshit. And some of the kills involved were just goofy as hell as well. Some of the kills just really goofy. And the dialogue's pretty much atrocious throughout the entire thing. So yeah, I really, really could not care less for this film whatsoever, and I hope I never come across it again. And how it got critical acclaim, like Kinds of Kindness, I will never understand. Now, Terrifier 3. First of all is what I'm going to say. I think the dark humour of Art the Clown, I think as Art the Clown is an invented character, I think it's a pretty funny idea, and I like Art as a character. Outside of that, that's what I'll say I like about this film. Aside from that, it is basically just torture porn. I'm sorry, it just is. And some of the things that happen in this movie, some people think, oh, that's just awesome, that's so sick and twisted, I love it. It's made for a certain type of person, and I would argue kind of demented. Like, I'm not really going to judge the people who enjoy this and go to a film to go see this, but it's more what position is being made from. Like, I'm sorry, it's been out long enough now where I can say this. If you're going to basically blow up a bunch of kids at a Santa meet and greet, I'm sorry, what kind of a fucking idea is that? I'm just saying it how it is. What in the right moral mind would someone put that in a screenplay and think, you know what, that's a good idea to just show a general audience? Oh, that'll be funny, we'll just blow up a bunch of kids at a Santa meet and greet. Oh yeah, clap, clap. Well, they'll all clap like a bunch of seals. I have absolutely no clue what they were even remotely expecting. And somehow people absolutely love it. I'm just sat there the whole time and I'm like, I'm laughing at just how dark and twisted art actually is. I'm just laughing my head off at it. Sometimes, like, it's just so bombastic. But other than the opening sequence, which kind of had me in the first few minutes, it was really kind of tense. After that, I just went completely off the rails and just absolute senseless violence, and I just can't get behind it. But Art the Clown was a good idea, and that is the only good thing I can say about this, and nothing else compared to this next one. Hellboy the Crooked Man in 120. I swear to God, for what is supposed to be a franchise film, this came off like a glorified student film with not a damn good thing about it. The effects are pretty terrible, honestly. The dialogue's awful. The action's not even that great, and just the entire it's eye roll worthy from minute A to minute Z. I could not believe what I was witnessing throughout the entire thing. Like, how is this passing for not just a widely released film in cinemas, but a franchise film? How is this passing for that? This honestly seems like a student, a student with rich parents bought the rights to Hellboy for the day and went off and shot a movie with his mates. That's how bad this looks. I could not believe what I was watching. This would probably pass for like a terrible one-off TV special. That's what this would seem like, at most. This is not a wide cinematic release, and honestly, without doubt, the worst film. The worst film of 2024. I could not believe what I was watching from start to finish. There were some close runner-ups, but I honestly think, this is the worst. So your worst film of 2024 is Hellboy the Crooked Man, in a list that I've done in the opposite direction. But what I will go back up to the start, yes, The Wild Robot was my favourite, and Hellboy was my least favourite. So that is 120 films I covered in 2024, my final of these 3 videos, and yeah, that just ought to do it, really. So, with every film on this list past the 40th, which was Mufasa, and every film on the 2022 rankings and 2023 rankings under the top 40, this is where we say goodbye to them all, really. There's nothing else to be done with them. However, the finale's coming up next, the Mayster Reviews finale, the last video of this division on the January 1st and tonight. I'm going to now give you some insights to what this video is going to be. So the final video of this division is going to be the top 40 of 2022, 2023 and 2024 in a bracket sort of tournament system, as I narrow down what my favourite film of the last 3 years has been. It's going to be a pretty fun video where I screen record on this tablet everything that you guys, well, everything essentially that I'm seeing in front of me, deciding what the brackets, how the brackets are going to be decided and who's going to go through and who's going to beat out who. But we are going to take the top 120 films, top 40 from each of the 3 years I've ranked, and yes, I'm going to pick a winner of the last 3 years. But in terms of this last year covering, I hope you enjoyed reading the column for the last time. But that's it. So that is my work done on 2024 on the 1st of January 2025. And I will see you next time for the Mayster Reviews finale. Goodbye.